The next thing that we're going to take a look at is every student's favorite type of problem, fractions and decimals. In our first concept, we're going to look at adding fractions. So we have 5/8 plus 2/3. Now before we can add or subtract any fractions, we have to have common denominators. So what we want to do is we want to figure out what is the least common multiple of 8 and 3. It just so happens that 8 and 3, their least common multiple is when they're multiplied together, so 24. They don't have anything smaller than that. So what we're going to do is we're going to multiply the left fraction, 5/8, by 3 over 3. Now notice that 3 over 3 reduces to 1, and this is important because you have to multiply the numerator and the denominator by the exact same thing to maintain the relationship of 5 and 8. If you multiply the 5 by 1 and the 8 by 3, you're not going to come out with the correct solution. You're going to do the same thing over with the second fraction, except this time we're going to multiply by 8 over 8. So when we multiplied the first and second fractions, we end up with 15 over 24 plus 16 over 24. At this point, we're done with the denominators. We don't have to do anything else with them. We're just going to add the numerators. So adding 15 and 16 gives us 31, and keeping the denominator, it's 31 over 24. Now for subtraction. I'm going to keep the same two fractions, just going to change the sign to subtraction. And so we'll have 5/8 minus 2/3. Again, we're going to multiply the 5/8 by 3/3, and we're going to multiply the 2/3 by 8/8. We're going to get 15 over 24 minus 16 over 24. Now, again, leave the denominators alone, just subtract the numerators. When we do that, we come up with -1 over 24. For our next concept, we're going to look at multiplication and division of fractions. So the original problem again is 5/8 and 2/3, but this time we're multiplying them. Whenever you're looking to multiply or divide, one of the things you want to do is look for any type of reduction that you could do, be it vertical reduction or cross reduction. 5/8 cannot be reduced, 2/3 cannot be reduced, but if you look at the 2 and the 8, we can reduce those. So you have to ask yourself, what number goes into both 2 and 8? And the answer to that is 2. So what is 2 divided by 2? It's 1. What is 8 divided by 2? It's 4. So our new fractions that we're going to be multiplying are 5/4 times 1/3. At this point, we've reduced everything as much as we possibly can. So now we're going to multiply across. We're going to multiply the numerators, and then we're going to multiply the denominators. So 5 times 1 is 5. 4 times 3 is 12. 5 over 12 cannot be reduced any further, so that is our solution. If you missed any reduction at the beginning, you would see that you would need to reduce at the end, and you could do it at that point. Now, the next thing that we're going to look at is division of that same problem. So 5/8 divided by 2/3. So the first thing that we actually have to do here is we need to flip the second fraction and change the sign to multiplication. So instead of 5/8 divided by 2/3, we're going to be looking at 5/8 times 3/2. Again, we're now at the rules for multiplication, which are look for any reduction. 5 and 8 can't be reduced, 3 and 2 can't be reduced, 5 and 2 can't be reduced, and 3 and 8 can't be reduced. So since there's no reduction, just go ahead and do your multiplication. 5 times 3 is 15, 8 times 2 is 16, so our solution is 15/16 because that can't be reduced either. We're now going to look at reducing fractions. So our original problem is 9 over 24. And what we want to do to reduce is to look at the factors of the numerator and look at the factors of the denominator and see if we can find what is the greatest common factor. So if we break 9 down, we end up with 1, 3, and 9. If we break down 24, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 8, 12, and 24. So looking at those numbers, which is the biggest number that you see as a factor of both? The answer to that is going to be 3. So we're going to divide both the numerator and the denominator by 3. So we have 9 divided by 3 over 24 divided by 3. That's going to leave us with a solution of 3/8. Now we're going to take a look at converting fractions to decimals. We're going to continue on with 5/8, and what we want to do is divide the numerator by the denominator. So 8 is going to be our divisor, and 5 is going to be our dividend. Whatever our quotient is, that is going to be the solution to how to convert from fractions to decimals. So you should remember how to do long division. Since 8 doesn't go into 5, we're going to have to put in a decimal point and add on a 0. And you just work your way through this problem until you get to the solution, which is going to be 0.625. The last bit of review that we need to do with decimals and fractions is converting from decimals to fractions. So if you're given 0.0052, what you want to do first is you want to take that number, the 0, 0, 5, and 2, and you want to make that into the numerator of a new fraction. Since the 0 and the 0 don't really do anything, we can just put 52 in the numerator. But the 2 zeros are important for what we're going to put in the denominator. Now you have to remember your place value. The first 0 is in the tenths spot. That's tenths with a THS. The second 0 is in the hundredths spot. Again, hundredths with a THS at the end. The 5 is in the thousandths, and the 2 is in the 10,000ths. So since 2 is in the 10,000th spot, we want to put 10,000 as our denominator. Now, what you should notice is that since you have two numbers that are both even, they can both be divided by 2 at the very least. But I also know that 4 goes into 52, so I'm going to divide both of those by 4. So 52 divided by 4 is going to give me 13, and 10,000 divided by 4 is going to give you 2,500. So your solution for converting 0.0052 from a decimal to a fraction is 13 over 2,500.